welcome to the Dresden Nexus podcast, recorded live from the 2025 Dresden Nexus Conference. I'm your host, Atika Faris-Saleh, and today we're joined by Dr. Mohsin Hafeez, Strategic Program Director at Water, Food and Ecosystems, International Water Management Institute, IWMI. This year marks a special occasion as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the United Nations University. Throughout this series, we'll explore the future of resources and how navigating the interconnected challenges of water, energy, food, land, and other resources, the resource nexus, will shape our path toward a sustainable world. In this episode, we'll hear from Dr. Mohsin, who will share his invaluable insights. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Atika. Thanks for inviting me for this very important, the podcast.
Let's dive into the conversation.
Yeah, sure.
In your view, what are the most pressing challenges facing agriculture today, and how can integrated water, food, and ecosystem management help address these issues to ensure long-term food security?
I think when we are looking around the agriculture, globally around 70% of water is used for the fresh water is used for agriculture. That varies from country to country. In developing countries of Asia and Africa, it's around even to the 90% of water used for agriculture. That much water will not be available in future due to various factors, including the climate change is one of the big factors, but also the competing demand for agriculture, for the industry, for the growing population, and for the environmental purposes. So then the important thing is that when the water availability, and then how we could improve that one, the water which is available, and avoid that one, the mismanagement of water, which is one of the important thing. If we are looking around the agriculture production in Egypt, that they are using a lot of concept of wastewater and recycling of water, even though the rainfall is around 40 millimeter, but then the productivity is much more higher through the better conservation practices and other one. In contrast to the India or Pakistan, where the productivity, particularly in Pakistan, is 3 times lower, but even though the rainfall is in the area where there is around 300-400 millimeter rainfall, how to bring that kind of balance as a part of that one is important. Then when the climate change or climate variability is happening, what that means that the water where we have built the infrastructure, that the rainfall patterns are changing and rainfalls are not there typically as a part of that one on the catchment area. That means the water will not be available. One of the classical example is 2022 floods in Pakistan, where the 33 million population was impacted. 1/3 of the Pakistan was flooded in during the August and September. And at the same time, the government of Pakistan was announcing it for the next cropping season there will be around 20% water shortage. What that means that yes, there was a lot of area in the lowland area which was impacted by the flood, but the dams in the catchment area there was not enough rainfall, and then the dams were not filled on that water. How to bring that kind of a thing as a part of that one, that's an important one. And in that regard, there is also we need to improve, we need to go for climate smart agriculture. We also need to think about that one, how to reduce that one, the food wastage as a part of that one. And one of the things which we were talking just before this one is about the poor quality of water, and that has impact on the soil degradation. Typically, we use the One Health concept when we are using in major part of the Asia, developing countries, as well as in Africa, in a peri-urban environment. Lot of wastewater without any treatment is being used for growing vegetables, and when that water is being used, that's okay, it has impact. There are the pathogens and everything on the vegetable crops, which is when people are consuming it, it has impact on human health. When that's being consumed by the as a fodder by the animal, and we are again getting the milk from those animals, are using the meat, and that water is also wastewater going into the groundwater and contaminated. That we called it One Health Nexus concept, and that's also another important thing. So and due to those changes, due to growing competition of the water, we are not providing enough water for downstream in the delta area, and that has impacting on the loss of biodiversity. And all those things are quite complex. So in that way, which we need to know, what are the things which we can bring it from the water food health nexus perspective is a part of that one. Looking around, what are the resources available? Looking around that one, the water security should not be at the cost of that one. The food security should not be at the cost of energy security. One of the things which we can use it, efficient use of water for agriculture practices. Typically, we are using flood irrigation. That irrigation need to stop, and then we need to go for the other agriculture practices that improve the water usage, and also the precise information available on how much water is needed by the crop and what. Our study, the IWMI is working on one of the initiative is the fresh, which we are looking around the sustainable fruits and vegetable in Tanzania, when we applied certain soil moisture instruments in the farmer's field, and that's guiding to the farmers when to irrigate and how much to irrigate, and that the farmer are able to around 30 to 40% of water saving, they are able to save it, and how to upscale those kind of technologies to the better scale as a part of that one. That's another important. Then second is we also need to go for a climate smart agriculture, and how that could be enhanced, and as a part of, and then the practices, because there a lot of research has been done at the individual field scale level, plot scale level on a climate smart agriculture, but that has not been upscaled. How that could be how that could be upscaled to the general farmers and to the broad acre farmers that they are using those practices. And the other thing you mentioned about the vertical farming is trying to bring it that kind of concept, which will not be universally applicable, but in cities, especially there is a shortage of the land, and how we could grow on that kind of the vegetable farming on the high roofs and everything like I have seen certain example in Hong Kong, and then in Thailand, in Bangkok particularly, where there are really good practices at that one, how that could be adopted. Another thing is also relevant to those aspects is about that one, we need to look around the whole holistic system level approach, because the water, energy, food ecosystem is giving a big picture thing and talking about the water need for multi-sectoral, and how that could be enhancing the water usage, water productivity, also not impacting the downstream environment, and those will be the broader thing, and how we could implement. And in that area, because it's easy to say, in this conference we are talking a lot about the concept, but how the concept could be operationalized on the ground, and what changes we can do it as a part of that one. That where the role of the remote sensing, some of the decision support system is coming very important, and then that's showing it what's the impact of one area to the other area, and how that could be translated, and what could. One of the example I will just give it how that could be helpful. Typically the rice and sugarcane is high water delta crops, and they are using a lot of water, and the farmers are worrying only about their livelihood. The policymakers don't have the idea about the impact at the country scale level. Under the CGIAR Nexus Gain initiative, we contacted with the government of Pakistan, Ministry of Water Resources, and told them why we are growing the rice and sugarcane in the area when we are water scarce country in Pakistan. And they said, can you give us certain numbers, what could be done? And scenario was that when you are using the if we reduce the sugarcane and rice, what will be the impact on water availability, on the food security, on nutrition security, and poverty. So we did a very interesting modeling, hydroeconomic decision support modeling, and that gives us the idea if we reduce that one, we are able to go from the 2.18 million acre foot of water. More water will be available to use it for other sectors, but at the same time, that's not impacting on the food security, because we are promoting the vegetables and then the pulses, which are the low water delta crops, also promoting more on the fruit to maintain the nutrition security for the country. But on the other hand side, we are relying less on the import, which are on the vegetable and some of the pulses which we are getting it, and that gives a balance. And when we shared those findings with the government and saying, oh, that's really amazing thing, And now how that could be convincing the policymakers and how that could be implemented, that's another challenge. So it's a very interesting thing, but a lot of things, and that's where the water, food, energy nexus is providing a multi-sectoral approach, and with that one we'll be able to overcome the agriculture sector challenge. One last point in that respect is the area where we are sure that when the future water will not be available due to climate change or due to other known factors. What that means, we need to take out the fresh water from agriculture, and that way we could only do it if we could use the wastewater after certain natural treatment, and then use it for the agriculture production, and in that way the fresh water could be diverted for the other sectors.
Excellent. And thank you also for bringing some examples from different countries and also some of the works of IWMI. Now, given your extensive experience in integrated water resources management, how can countries around the world better coordinate the management of water, energy, food, and other related sectors to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals?
That's a very important thing. I think that the big thing is we need to be, because typically most of the developing countries have a different ministries. They are working in a silo approach. Let's say the water ministry is only looking on the water. Then they are not looking around anything about where is the water intended use. Ideally, they should be looking around the water is used in energy, what are the demands for that one. Water is used for agriculture. Water is also used for the ecosystem, and how to balance on that one. And similarly, the other way around, that the energy, taking the example, there are around 25 million tube wells are being operated in India only, and majority of them are diesel tube wells or electrical tube wells. 18% of Indian energy is being used for the pumping the water. So then energy use is one energy department is looking only at energy, but they are not linking with the water, how much water is being pumped, because the water availability is directly linking with the food security, and also looking around also for the energy, and then and that's impacting on the ecosystem as well as. So how we could identify better planning, and then as well as the better coordination, and make sure that when we are actually accessing those one and linking with the various policies. Typically there is a policy in each country about water policy, climate change policy, food security policy, energy policy, and then there is separate environment. How we could bring the coherence between the policy is an important one. And when we want to bring the coherence of policies and everything, that brings another important thing is identifying the champions within the government ministries, who are not looking on a siloed approach, who are looking it around that one, and they are able to helpful on a policy level recommendation, policy level implementation, and supporting it. Often I see the countries where in South Asia or in Africa, when we go that one, we are IWMI as an organization, we are able to bring that one, the irrigation department people with the agriculture department both need to talk hand in hand and working together, and then the climate change also need to work it together. Then that's where it's important to say that from 2011 onward we are talking about WEF framework, then WEFI nexus concept and everything, but how to translate this language into the policy makers. And therefore the important is about the decision making tools which are available, which is showing that some impact as a part of that one. Like the example I was talking with you earlier, part of that one, if we reduce the rice and sugar cane, then how that will be impact, and how that impact translating into the economic cost. That's another important one, that because the policymaker or the financial, the treasury is only worrying about the money. If you show them there are certain benefits, then they will be looking around the example, they will be looking around that one. I will again here quote another example, the other scenario where we looked around that one. There is in Pakistan, I'm talking it here about that we are importing a lot, the 3.8 million tons of the vegetable oil from the developed countries, and also around 3 million tons of that one, the oil seed crops from the other one for oil consumption. At the same time, we are only growing at 0.8 million ton. And when we presented this idea to the policymakers, why not we should promote certain tariffs or certain incentive policy measures that we should be growing the more on the edible oil crops, so that we reduce basically on import. And then the first question they asked us how that will be impacting on that one, the what revenue we are able to get it, and if we are able to translate that one, that's an important one. So we developed a decision support system under the CGIAR policy initiative, policy science program, and which is a continuation of the Nexus Gain initiative, which global lead, where we are looking around that one, how the decision making tools are available to the policymaker. They are not interested in complex science, but they could look into that one and then have a better understanding in a policymaker's perspective. Another important thing is how we could bring the holistic system level approach. Typically, you are dividing the water, or you're dividing the agriculture to the provincial scale, then going to the local scale level, but we need to look on systematic level. And that way, that one, the what we are trying to bring it, that the integrated roadmap of the water for the food system, how we could bring the connectivity between water and food system as a part of an example. And that's where there's a lot of good examples, lot of good thing which we can do it, but still that's in summary that we need to translate that one and the same support system. We also need to look around the evidence-based information and how we could share the success stories and all sort of thing. Recently, we have been working on the water, energy, food ecosystem nexus in many countries, and we really have a good example. Just giving the example from Nepal, when we were 3 years ago talking about a WEFI nexus concept, the government was saying, yes, that's a good, but what that means to us. Then we developed a curriculum on the WEFI nexus, and where we identify around 30 people from ministries, from the universities, and university became a partner. And then we developed that master degree curriculum and trained to the people on that water, energy, food nexus concept and everything. And through the different summer and winter school, we invited them to the other country where IWMI and IFPRI was organizing the WEFI Nexus School. And now where we are at the part of that one, then the ministry said they want to develop a new irrigation policy. And they said, now we have a better understanding of that one, what exactly that means. And now they build the policy on irrigation policy on WEFI Nexus concept around that one. And that's a part of built-in, which is really very successful example. Picking up on that one, we were approached by the World Bank on another one, that can we develop a operational guidelines for the nexus in South Asia. So that's another interesting work which you look around in the 7 countries of South Asia and seeing what are the constraints, what are the challenging environment, and how we could bring the enabling environment for operationalization of that one. And of course that's a quite long way. We will not say turn around overnight, but that's where we invited the 7 from the different ministries from each country around with the ADPC as a part of the partner. That one provided training to them and identifying the champions, and then went through the several consultation workshops with the various countries. And now we are developing the guideline. That the next step is, it's important to have a guideline, how that could be operationalization at local scale level, and that's where we are working it on the various aspects.
Very nice. So what I'm hearing is there's the role of also the international community in this case, IWMI, also to support decision makers, policy makers with research findings, but also tools as well as capacity building opportunities to help them also learn what's out there and apply in their respective local governance jurisdictions.
Yes, only one thing is, typically as a researcher, as an international scientific community, we only go for the scientific publication, which is an important part of that one. But then the most important is that one, how that information could be translated to the policy makers in their language, how we convert the science to the policy so the policy makers understand it, and how we could convert that sort of the language again to the farmers on the ground or to the government organization on the ground, and saying it what that means, what are the steps are required for doing that one. And then once we identify the champions, and once we are able to communicate in the policymakers language or in the layman language to the farmers, then we are able to make an impactful on that one. Otherwise it will be very nice story that you talked about it, you publish a article in the very high impact factor, but that will not have any impact on the ground. And IWMI as a research for development organization, We are transforming the impacts in various countries on through sustainable management of land and water, and that through search for development stories.
Excellent. Now, moving on to another topic which you already kind of alluded to was technologies. You mentioned vertical farming as an example. Technologies are transforming water management. How can the adoption of these innovations improve water use efficiency and agricultural productivity globally?
Yep, I think you asked a very important thing. I think I will just give the example of the one of the example from Australia, where I worked over 14 years, where the farming system is in a demand driven. They are using the technology. Let's say there is a water available at the dam, and then the farmers have it's a demand driven system. Farmers know and what type of crop he is going to plant, and then he will place an order. He need a water on X day. Typically there is a lag time. The water when reach from the dam, if you release the water, and when the water will arrive to the farmer's field, maximum sometimes in some area it goes to the 40 days. That's quite a lag time, okay, where they have done it through the modeling, through the better technology, through the remote sensing, and their development of irrigation demand forecasting tool. Okay, what that means, so you're utilizing the remote sensing, the big data, the Landsat data cubes, and all sort of thing, which is guiding us. Okay, basically when we are growing a certain crop, what type of the crop, typical response will be that one. So with the remote sensing, we are able to do it, the actual ET estimation, how much is the water consumption for the area on it today. But doing the artificial intelligence and data mining techniques and other one, we are able to also link up with that one. 75% of the past data for the training and other for validation, and then the model. I have developed those model in Australia and applied it, and that getting the climate forecast data from the Met department, then that guide you about next what will be the irrigation demand for next 7 days, and then that's helped a lot, because if there is rainfall is happening, then that means that we don't need to do, because typically farmer is worried on farmer is getting the water from 3 sources: rainwater, or the groundwater, or the irrigation water. And then knowing on that one how to account for those sources, especially for the rainfall, that gives a more farmer reliability, when to irrigate and how much to irrigate, and there are soil moisture sensors which could be applied. Another thing is also for the remote sensing and GIS, you are able to have a better understanding about that one, the whole irrigation system picture. And those are really successful examples which I talked about about that one, the things in Pakistan or in Tanzania or in Benin, where the farmers are able to save around 30 to 40% of water through these soil moisture sensors. And those soil moisture sensors are working in a very layman language. It's based on the science, but it's giving these indicators into traffic light diagram. If it is red, it means you are affected. You need to, if it is like the yellow, it means that you need to start preparing. If it is green, then that's a plenty of water, you don't need to worry. And of course you just need to be as part of that one, going to the yellow, not to the red, not to the other one. And then there are the Internet of Things, also that's very important for part of that one. And that's where there are we are typically relying on the weather station, which are really good, but those are quite costly. There are the smaller set of the instrumentation which you could place it, which are important for monitoring the temperature, for the also the rainfall, which you can place it several instrumentation, and then at one place instead of one, and that could be utilized as a part of that one. And overarching for the whole system level planning, where we could identify where are the hotspots in terms of the groundwater quality, in terms of the water quality, and how that's impacting, and which area we could irrigate and which area not to irrigate, and all sort of the things of that one. When we are growing the agriculture crop, we are diverting the water. Typically, the efficiency in most of the developing countries around 40-45%. And why? Because a lot of water is being wasted when the water is released from that one, the dam, to the system scale level, and then at the field scale level. by doing, if we know the precise timing of how much water is needed at the crop scale level, we could reverse that one and we could adopt those ones. So that could happen through better planning. And that's where one of the things which could be avoided and which could be building a small nature-based pond at the farm scale level. Although it's a supply-driven system, but then building small kind of pond there when the farmers are able to harvest the rainwater, and how that could be done as a part of that one. That's another important thing that could be done. And there are a lot of interesting examples, and then which has been picked up. IWMI as the institute, we are working with various farmers organizations, with various government, how to raise the awareness, how to work with the farmers and bringing as a demonstration plot, demonstration farm, and bringing the farmers at that farm, and then seeing and believing, and then these farmers are able to propagate to the other farmers saying how best is the technology or how worse is the technology. So the adoption, capacity building, and how this technology could be used for better planning, systematic planning is important, and remote sensing has a huge potential to play in that role. The artificial intelligence that has changed the transformation at IWMI, we are using the AI for the irrigation modernization, for the irrigation demand forecasting, and we are also using for the digital twins. What that means, that one, the water system, how we could build a digital twins and see how the system will respond and how sort of thing, and that's what we have done in Kumati River Basin.
Excellent examples. Now, in one word, if you have to, what do we need to secure a bright resource future?
Evidence base, and then how the evidence base could be translated to the policymakers.
Excellent.
In their language.
Very, very wise words. Thank you, Dr. Mohsin, for sharing your expertise and vision on such a critical topic. It's conversations like these that help us to reimagine the future of resources and sustainability. We hope you enjoyed this episode and that it sparked new ideas on how we can all contribute to a more sustainable and equitable future. Stay tuned for more episodes of the Dresden Nexus podcast, where thought leaders from around the world come together to explore solutions to the resource nexus. Until next time, I'm Atika Fairy Saleh, and thank you for listening.